June 4, 1942. The vast expanse of the Coral Sea, 500 miles northeast of Australia, churned under a relentless tropical sun. Waves crashed against the steel hulls of the USS Yorktown, her decks slick with salt spray and the acrid tang of aviation fuel. You can almost feel the vibration of the engines thrumming through your boots as pilots scramble, their flight suits clinging to sweat-soaked skin. The air hums with urgency. Shouts echo across the carrier's crowded hangar, where mechanics wrench at Pratt & Whitney engines, the metallic clangs punctuating the roar of propellers spinning up above. Lieutenant Commander John Thatch, call sign Jimmy, stands at the edge of the flight deck, his eyes narrowed against the glare. At 37, he's a veteran of the Navy's early air wing. His face weathered by years of Pacific patrols, a thin scar tracing his jaw from a pre-war scrape with a Japanese reconnaissance plane. He's got that steady gaze, the kind that misses nothing. But today it betrays a flicker of unease. The Yorktown pitches gently, her anti-aircraft guns manned and ready. But the real fight is in the sky. Word from the bridge. Japanese carriers are out there, somewhere in the haze, their Zero fighters leading the charge like wolves on the hunt. "Scramble the squadron!" the air officer bellows through the intercom, his voice crackling over the din. Thatch nods to his wingman, Ensign R.D. Butch O'Hare, a lanky kid from Chicago with a boyish grin that hasn't yet been erased by combat. O'Hare's already climbing into his Grumman F-4F Wildcat, the fighter's stubby wings and armored belly a far cry from the sleek elegance of the enemy. The Wildcat's 50-caliber machine guns are loaded, 400 rounds per gun, but Thatch knows the odds. The Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0 has been tearing through American pilots like tissue paper since Pearl Harbor. Fast, agile, with a turning radius that lets it dance circles around anything the US Navy throws at it. Reports from Wake Island and the Philippines paint a grim picture. Zeros diving out of the sun, their 20-meter cannons shredding bombers before they can release their loads. Thatch straps into his own Wildcat, number 6 F-13, the cockpit canopy sliding shut with a hydraulic hiss. The engine coughs to life, belching blue smoke that stings his nostrils. He glances at the instrument panel. Altimeter steady at sea level, compass pointing into the wind. The catapult officer signals, and suddenly the world blurs as the deck-mounted slingshot hurls him forward. G-forces slam him back into the seat, the carrier shrinking astern as he climbs into the blue. The Coral Sea spreads out below, a patchwork of turquoise and foam, dotted with the silhouettes of the Yorktown's escort, destroyers cutting wakes like knives through water. Up here, at 10,000 feet, the air is thinner, cooler, carrying the faint ozone scent of high altitude. Vuk levels off, O'Hare forming up on his right wingtip, their planes rocking slightly in the turbulence. Radio chatter fills his headset. "This is Thatch, Tango leader. Eyes sharp, boys. Zeros like to play hide-and-seek in the clouds." His squadron, 4 Wildcats strong, fans out, searching the horizon where anvil-shaped cumulus clouds tower like sentinels. The sun beats down mercilessly, turning the cockpit into a greenhouse, sweat trickling down Thatch's back under his parachute harness. Then a glint. Far to the north, specks against the sky, resolving into the telltale silhouette of the Zero. Long, slender fuselage, rounded cowling over the Nakajima Sakai engine, wings clipped for speed rather than maneuverability at low speeds. There are 6 of them, escorting a formation of Val-dive bombers arrowing toward the task force. Thatch's heart quickens. He's seen what these birds can do. At Pearl Harbor, Zeros had claimed 29 American planes without a single loss. In the Dutch East Indies, they'd outclimbed P-40s, picking them off like ducks in a row. Their secret: lightweight construction, no armor, no self-sealing tanks, trading protection for agility that let pilots like Saburo Sakai roll and loop with balletic grace. "Bandits at 2 o'clock high." O'Hare's voice crackles, excitement edged with tension. The Zeros spot them too, breaking formation with effortless climbs, their red Hinomaru insignias flashing in the sun. Thatch banks left, throttle wide open, the Wildcats' 200 horsepower engine straining against the Zeros' reputed 940. But power isn't everything. The Zeros' climb rate is legendary, 3,000 feet per minute, pulling it above the Americans in seconds. 1-0, piloted by Lieutenant Junior Grade Isoroku, streaks past Thatch's canopy, so close he can see the pilot's scarf fluttering. Bullets? No, it's a feint. The Zero's 7.7mm guns chatter briefly, stitching the air but missing. Thatch dives, using the Wildcat's dive brakes to control speed, but the Zeros are on him like shadows. One loops behind O'Hare, its 20mm shells exploding in fiery bursts. O'Hare jinks hard, his plane shuddering as rounds punch through the wing, fuel leaking in a misty trail. "I'm hit!" O'Hare yells, but he rolls inverted, firing a deflection shot that clips the Zero's tail. The enemy plane wobbles but recovers. Its pilot, a seasoned Ijuchi from the carrier Shikaku, twisting into a tight turn that no Wildcat could match. Thatch watches in frustration as the Zero scissors back and forth, always just out of his sights. The battle erupts in a frenzy of twisting contrails and staccato bursts. Tracers arc like fiery comets, the sharp crack of gunfire mingling with the deeper thud of engines. Thatch's squadron weaves through the melee, but the Zeros dictate the terms, diving, climbing, turning with a fluidity that exposes the Wildcat's bulk. One American plane, flown by Ensign Ramsey, takes a direct hit. Its engine erupts in flames, the pilot bailing out into the void, parachute blooming white against the blue. Thatch's stomach twists. He knows Ramsey shared cigarettes on long watches. The Zeros press their advantage, their pilots trained in relentless dogfights, eyes peeled for the slightest error. As the sun dips toward the horizon, painting the sea in molten gold, Thatch breaks off, low on fuel and ammo. The Zeros don't pursue. They've bloodied the task force enough, their bombers slipping through to score hits on the Yorktown sister ship, the Lexington. Back on deck, Thatch climbs from his cockpit, legs shaky, the deckhands swarming to rearm. O'Hare lands beside him, grinning through the grime. "Those bastards turn like they're on rails, Skipper. How the hell do we beat that?" Thatch wipes sweat from his brow, staring out at the fading contrails. The Zeros rule this sky, unchallenged predators of the Pacific. But in that moment, watching the replay in his mind, the way 1-0 hesitated in a high-speed pass, its nose pitching up too sharply, a spark ignites. A blind spot, maybe. Something exploitable. He claps O'Hare on the shoulder. "We figure it out, Butch, or we don't come home." The carrier steams on into the twilight, the sea whispering secrets against her hull, while above, the ghosts of the Zeros linger like unanswered questions. The war in the Pacific is young, but already men like Thatch sense the tide's subtle shift waiting to be seized. June 10, 1942. The humid air of Pearl Harbor clings like a second skin, the harbor's waters still scarred by the ghosts of December 7th. Twisted wreckage of the Arizona poking through the oily surface like a broken finger. You can taste the salt and diesel on your tongue as you step onto the bustling quay, the deck of the USS Yorktown groaning under repair crews' hammers, sparks flying from welders' torches in the sweltering afternoon heat. Gulls wheel overhead, their cries sharp against the distant rumble of cranes, hoisting new aircraft onto the carrier's freshly painted flight deck. Lieutenant Commander John Thatch strides across the gangplank, his flight boots thudding on the weathered wood. O'Hare trailing a step behind, with a towel slung over his shoulder. The coral sea scrap still burns in their minds. Those Zeros twisting like eels, untouchable in their turns. Lake's mind races, replaying that one fleeting moment. The lead Zero, its pilot overconfident in a high-side pass, nose rising just a fraction too slow, exposing the belly for a heartbeat. No armor there, he recalls from intelligence briefs, lightweight alloy skin, vulnerable to a well-placed burst. But how to force that exposure? The Wildcats' turning circle is a plough horse to the Zero's greyhound. Raw dogfighting is suicide. In the squadron ready room below decks, the air is thick with cigarette smoke and the faint metallic bite of gun oil. Bulbs swing gently from the ship's motion, casting shadows on the corkboard walls, pinned with grainy photos of downed Zeros, twisted fuselages bobbing in the waves, pilots' silk scarves tangled in the debris. Thatch gathers his pilots around a scarred oak table, 6 men in sweat-stained khakis, their eyes hollow from the week's debriefs. Ensign Bill Edwards, a wiry Texan with a perpetual squint, leans forward, nursing a black coffee that steams in the mug. "Skipper, those nips own the sky. My PBY got jumped off Guadalcanal last month. Zeros came out of nowhere, 20 millimeters turning it to Swiss cheese before we dropped a single sonobuoy." Thatch nods, unrolling a chart of the Coral Sea engagement, blue pencil lines tracing contrails like veins. "We can't outturn 'em, Bill. That's playing their game. But watch this." He sketches quick loops, his hand steady despite the ship's faint roll. In that pass, the Zero hesitated. High speed, tight radius, but blind from behind if we force a mutual attack. The room quiets. The only sound the creak of leather chairs and the muffled lap of waves against the hull. O'Hare perks up, his Chicago accent cutting through. "Like beam defense? Pair up, cover each other's 6? "Exactly, Butch." Thatch draws 2 Wildcats in tandem, arrows weaving like a braid. "We call it the Thatch weave. You fly lead, I cover high. Zero dives on you. I roll in from the side, force him to break. He turns. You nail his blind spot from below. It's geometry, not guts. Their agility's their curse at speed. They stall if pushed too hard." The pilots murmur, Edwards tracing the lines with a calloused finger. Skepticism flickers in their eyes, easy on paper but up there, with adrenaline pounding and traces zipping past your canopy. Would it hold? By dusk, they're out on Ford Island's auxiliary field, the sun bleeding orange across the runway's cracked concrete. Ground crew rolls out 4 F4, F3 Wildcats, their olive-drab fuselages gleaming under floodlights that buzz like angry hornets. Thatch climbs into the lead plane, the cockpit familiar as an old glove, stick-worn smooth, gun sights crosshairs etched from practice. The engine roars to life, a throaty bellow that vibrates through the frame, prop wash kicking up dust that stings his cheeks through the open canopy. O'Hare and Edwards take wing positions, their radios crackling. "Tango 1 ready. Let's see if this weave don't tangle us first." They taxi into the wind, tires squealing softly on the tarmac, then throttle up in a crescendo of power. The runway blurs beneath, Pearl's palm-fringed shore whipping past as they lift off, climbing into the twilight sky where stars prick the deepening blue. At 5,000 feet the air cools, carrying the clean scent of altitude mixed with exhaust. Thatch levels off, formation tight, 2 pairs 200 yards apart, engines sinking in a low growl. "Initiate weave on my mark," he calls, banking gently left. The world tilts, horizon swinging, the harbour shrinking to a glittering mosaic below. O'Hare dives first, simulating a Zero attack, throttle back, nose dipping in a mock pursuit. Thatch counters, rolling right, his Wildcat's wings slicing the air with a whistle. G-forces press him into the seat, the altimeter spinning down to 4,000 as he crosses behind O'Hare's tail. "Got your 6!" O'Hare's voice whoops over the radio, pulling up sharply, his plane's shadow fleeting across Thatch's canopy. They weave again, left, right, a rhythmic dance of steel and propellers, contrails feathering like silk ribbons. Edwards' pair joins, the 4 planes interlocking in a deadly lattice, each covering the other's exposure. Sweat beads on Thatch's forehead despite the chill. The stick fights him in the turns, the Wildcats' 1-200 horses hauling it through maneuvers that strain the airframe. A glitch. O'Hare overshoots, his wingtip flashing dangerously close, the metallic tang of fear sharp in Thatch's throat. "Ease up, Butch! Sink the rolls!" They adjust, the weave smoothing, forcing an imaginary Zero into a predictable path. Dive, expose, get shredded by converging fire. Below, spotters on the field wave flags, timing the passes, under 10 seconds to reverse threat. As night falls, the planes circle back, landing lights piercing the dark like fireflies. Thatch touches down hard, tires smoking on the runway, the deceleration shoving him forward against the harness. He kills the engine, the sudden silence ringing in his ears, and vaults out, boots crunching gravel. The pilots cluster, faces flushed under the arc lights. Edwards grins, clapping Thatch's back. Holy hell, skipper, that could have worked on those zeros. Blind spots right there. Under the nose if we force the geometry. O'Hare nods, wiping grease from his hands on his trousers. But we need more birds. 4's a start, but against a wolf pack? Thatch stares at the stars, the constellation Orion mocking with its fixed patterns. The weave is promising, a crack in the Zero's armor, but untested in blood. Intelligence whispers of a bigger storm brewing. Mikuma and Mogami, sighted near the atolls, carriers massing for Midway. The Yorktown's repairs race against the clock, welders' torches flaring like signal fires. In the officers' mess that night, over lukewarm spam and coffee, Thatch briefs the skipper, Captain Elliot Buckmaster, a stern Virginian with a pipe clenched in his teeth. The room smells of boiled cabbage and ink from charts spread wide. It's defensive, sir, turns their strength against them. If we train the squadron... Buckmaster puffs thoughtfully, smoke curling toward the low ceiling. Do it, Jimmy. But remember, Midway's no drill. Those Zeros'll be thicker than flies on a corpse. Thatch lies awake in his bunk later. The ships hum a lullaby, visions of weaving contrails chasing sleep. The Pacific waits, vast and unforgiving, its skies ruled by the Zero's shadow. But now a tactic glimmers, a blind spot discovered in the heat of desperation, ready to be forged in the fire of the next dawn. The war's turning points aren't born in boardrooms. They're sketched in the sweat of men who refuse to yield the heavens. June 4th, 1942. The flight deck of the USS Yorktown heaves under the relentless Pacific swell, 1,200 miles west of Hawaii. The horizon a blurred line where sea meets sky in an endless grey. Salt spray mists your face like a cold kiss as you grip the safety netting. The carrier's island superstructure looming behind you, radar antennas spinning like watchful eyes. The air thrums with the urgency of war. Distant booms from gunnery drills echo off the waves, while below decks, the clang of riveting guns repairs the scars from the Coral Sea. You can smell the fresh paint mingling with the oily reek of fuel lines snaking across the deck, where Douglas SBD Dauntless dive bombers huddle under tarps, their bomb racks empty but ready. Lieutenant Commander John Thatch stands amid the chaos, clipboard in hand, his khaki shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms tanned and scarred from endless sun. At 37, his hair's starting to grey at the temples, but his voice cuts through the din like a knife. All right, listen up. Tango Squadron, form on me in the ready room. We're drilling the weave till you dream in contrails. His eyes scan the group. Ensign Butch O'Hare, still buzzing from the Pearl tests, flashes a thumbs up. Ensign Bill Edwards chews a toothpick, his Texan drawl muttering about nip aces waiting to pounce. The Yorktown's task force steams toward the unknown, codenamed Operation Watchtower's Shadow, Midway Atoll, the linchpin island 300 miles northwest, where scouts report Japanese carriers massing like storm clouds. Down in the ready room, the bulkheads vibrate with the ship's heartbeat, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, casting harsh shadows on the blackboard scrawled with Thatch's diagrams. The scent of stale coffee and unwashed flight gear hangs heavy, pilots slouched in canvas chairs, their Mae West vests draped like forgotten promises. Thatch paces, his boots scuffing the linoleum, unrolling a fresh chart of Midway's atoll. Jagged reefs encircling sandy specks, the airstrip a vital dot in the vast ocean. Intelligence says Nagumo's got 4 flat tops, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, Zeros by the dozen, escorting Kates and Vals straight for the island. We intercept at dawn, high cover. No heroics. Stick to the weave or we're buzzard bait. O'Hare leans forward, elbows on knees, his lanky frame filling the chair. Skipper, those zeros from the Shokaku in the slot, they rolled through our cap like it was tea time. But the weave, man, if we link 4, maybe 6 birds, we can box 'em in. Thatch nods, sketching the pattern again. Pairs weaving, crossing paths to create kill zones, forcing the Zero's nose-blind agility into a trap. The Wildcats 6. 50 calls per wing would converge on that vulnerable underbelly. No armor plates, just thin duralumin skin over fuel tanks that ignite like match heads. Edward snorts, flicking his toothpick. Sounds good on the board, but up there? One slip and you're eating 20 millimeters. The drill horn blares, and they're up, scrambling through hatches slick with condensation, the corridor's red lighting pulsing like a vein. On deck, the wind whips at 30 knots, whipping halyards against masts with sharp cracks. Ground crew chief, Petty Officer Ramirez, a stocky Filipino with grease-blackened hands, waves them toward their birds, F4 F4s now, upgraded with self-sealing tanks and extra armor, their blue-gray camouflage blending with the overcast. Thatch hauls himself into the cockpit of 6 F-15, the seat leather cracked from salt, instruments glowing faintly, airspeed indicator zeroed, mixture rich for takeoff. He flips switches, the starter whines, then the Pratt & Whitney R1830 coughs to life, a deep rumble that shakes the deck plates under your feet. Catapult chief signals with semaphore flags, and Thatch salutes, canopy clamping shut. The slingshot fires, bam, hurling the Wildcat forward, deck vanishing in a blur of rivets and crewmen bracing against the blast. You feel the G's crush your chest as Thatch climbs, the Yorktown shrinking to a toy on the waves below, escorts like the cruiser Minneapolis trailing white wakes. At 8,000 feet, the air bites cold through cracks in the canopy, oxygen mask fogging slightly as he forms up. O'Hare on his wing, Edwards and Lieutenants Ramsey and Fisher pairing off, 5 planes in loose echelon, props chopping the humid air. Tango leader to flight, initiate weave, pair 1. Thatch's voice crackles over the radio, steady as steel. He banks left, nose dipping into a simulated dive, throttle firewalled to 3,000 RPM. O'Hare rolls inverted behind him, mimicking a zero pursuit. Fast, tight, the Wildcat's frame groaning under 4 Gs. Thatch pulls up hard, stick yanking back, the altimeter flickering as he crosses high. Cross now! Below, O'Hare fires blanks, tracers absent but the drill vivid. Imagine the Zero's pilot, eyes wide in the cowling shade, blind to the beam attack slicing in from 90 degrees. The weave tightens, planes scissoring, wings flashing sun glints, the formation a living net over the empty sea. Edwards' pair joins the dance, their engines a chorus of thunder, contrails weaving like spider silk at 12,000 feet. Sweat slicks Thatch's grip on the stick. The Wildcat fights the turn, its 18,000-pound weight no match for a Zero's Featherlight 5E300, but the geometry holds, forcing the attacker into exposure. A near miss. Fisher's wingtip clips turbulence from O'Hare's prop, the plane bucking like a bronco. "Steady 4, sink the roll!" Thatch calls, heart pounding, the vast Pacific below indifferent, dotted with whitecaps that could swallow a ditched flyer whole. They run it twice more, fuel gauges dipping toward yellow, the sun breaking through clouds to paint the waves gold. Breaking off, Thatch circles the task force, spotting the Yorktown's deck crew arrayed like ants, binoculars trained skyward. Landing's a ballet of precision, hook snagging the wire with a jolt that snaps your neck, engine windmilling to a stop amid cheers from the barrier crew. Thatch pops the canopy, hot air rushing in with the tang of burnt rubber from tires. He slides down the wing, boots hitting deck with a thud. O'Hare landing beside him, helmet under arm, grin wide. "Felt solid, Jimmy. That blind spot, it's real. Force 'em high speed. They can't see the weave closing." But doubt lingers in the debrief, back in the ready room where coffee's gone cold and charts curl at edges. Captain Buckmaster joins, his pipe smoke wreathing the air like fog, face etched with the weight of command. "Good work, Thatch." But Nagumo's boys are no greenhorns. Hiryu's Zeros flew the China Run, pilots with 50 kills. If Midway goes south, he trails off, staring at the atoll's map, where Japanese arrows point like spears. Thatch meets his gaze. We adapt, sir. The weave buys time for the Dauntlesses to hit the decks. Zeros rule the turn, but not the trap. Night falls heavy. The Yorktown blacked out, stars wheeling overhead as you lie on a cot in the wardroom, the sea's rhythm rocking you. Thack stares at the overhead pipes dripping condensation, mind replaying the drill. The fleeting vulnerability of the Zero silhouette, nose up, belly exposed. Scouts radio in, enemy pickets 200 miles out, the battle's dawn creeping closer. In the distance, the Enterprise and Hornet steam parallel, their silhouettes ghosts in the moonlight, squadrons drilling the same desperate geometry. The Pacific holds its breath, waves lapping hulls like whispers of fate. Thatch closes his eyes, the weave etched in his veins, a discovery born of fire, poised to pierce the Zero's reign. But tomorrow it would face the storm, where theory meets the Reaper's blade. June 4th, 1942. Dawn breaks over the Midway Atoll like a bloodshot eye, the sky a bruised purple streaked with gold, 200 miles northwest of Oahu, where the Pacific's vast emptiness presses in from all sides. You can hear the low growl of engines idling on the USS Yorktown's flight deck, the carrier slicing through swells that send spray arcing over the bow, soaking the anti-aircraft gunners huddled at their 1.1-inch mounts. The air tastes of ozone and fear, sharp as the crackle of radio static bursting from the bridge speakers. Bogies inbound 150 miles bearing 320. Scramble all fighters! Cap now! Lieutenant Commander John Thatch bolts from the ready room hatch, his flight jacket flapping in the 25-knot wind, the deck vibrating under his boots as he races toward his Wildcat, F4F4, number 6 F-15, its propeller already spinning under the starter's whine. At 37, his movements are precise, honed by 1,000 hours in the cockpit, but his pulse hammers like a riveting gun. O'Hare's right behind, helmet tucked under his arm, yelling over the din to Ensign Bill Edwards and the others. Lieutenants Ramsey and Fisher, their faces pale masks under the red dawn light. "Stick to the weave, boys! No solo glory! It's us or them!" Thatch shouts, hauling himself onto the wing step, the metal warm from the rising sun. The cockpit envelops him like a coffin of steel and glass, straps biting into his shoulders as he cinches the harness. Instruments flicker to life, fuel at 3/4, ammo belts full with 400 rounds of 50 caliber per gun, oxygen flowing cool through the mask. The Pratt & Whitney roars, a beast awakening, prop blast kicking up deck litter that stings his exposed neck. Catapult officer waves frantic flags, Thatch salutes, canopy slamming down with a thud. The deck lurches, then hurls him forward in a gut-wrenching surge, the Yorktown's bow falling away as he claws for altitude, the atoll's sandspit and airstrip shrinking below like a discarded map. At 15,000 feet, the air thins to a razor edge, clouds parting to reveal the task force, Yorktown steaming with Enterprise and Hornet, destroyers circling like shepherd dogs, wakes foaming white against the deep blue. Thatch forms up Tango Squadron. 6 Wildcats now, Edwards on his left wing, O'Hare high cover, the rest in pairs. Their engines a synchronized thunder that echoes off the waves. Radio crackles. "Tango leader, this is Yorktown. Radar paints 108 bandits. Zeros leading Vals and Kates straight for the island. ETA 20 minutes. Dive bombers away. Cover the Dauntlesses." Thatch's mouth goes dry, the leather of the stick slick under his glove. Nagumo's fleet is out there, 4 carriers unleashing hell, Zeros by the score. Light, deadly, their pilots veterans of Pearl and the China skies, 20mm cannons hungry for American blood. The first specks appear on the horizon, resolving into a swarm. 36 Zeros, sleek as sharks, Hinomaru discs glaring red under the climbing sun, escorting waves of Aichi D3A Vals folding wings like vultures descending. Thatch's heart seizes. He's seen the reports. Zeros climbing to 20,000 feet in under 5 minutes, turning inside a Wildcats radius like a knife through silk. Bandits at 11 o'clock low. Tango flight, pairs form. Initiate high cover. His voice steadies the static, but sweat beads inside his flight suit, the cockpit heating like a furnace. The Zeros spot them, breaking high in flawless echelons. Nakajima Sakai engines howling as they climb to engage. One leads the charge. Lieutenant Masao Kanai from the Akagi, 28 kills to his name, scarf trailing from his open canopy. He dives on Edward's pair, 20mm shells blooming in orange fireballs that bracket the Wildcat's tail. Edward's jinx, radio yelping, taking fire as fragments rattle his fuselage. Thatch rolls in, throttle to the stops, the Wildcat shuddering at 320 knots. Weave now, Tango 2 O'Hare, cross high. It begins, a desperate ballet over the atoll's turquoise lagoon, where coral heads spike the shallows like teeth. O'Hare dives first, simulating the bait, his plane arrowing down in a 60-degree plunge, G-forces pinning him as the lead Zero, Kanai's, latches on, nose tracking with lethal grace. Thatch banks hard right, wings slicing clouds feathered with morning mist, the altimeter spinning to 10,000. Coming across, he grunts, oxygen mask muffling the strain. The Zero commits, belly flashing white alloy in the sun, blind to the beam as Thatch's sights align, not head-on but from the side, forcing the geometry. Bullets erupt. Thatch's 650 cals hammer in a deafening staccato, tracers lancing like hornets into the Zero's undercarriage. No armor there, just vulnerable skin over the fuel lines. Rounds punch through, igniting a trail of fire that licks the fuselage. Kanai's plane lurches, smoke belching black from the cowling, but he rolls out, agility saving him as he loops away, trailing glycol. Splash one, probable! Thatch whoops, adrenaline surging, the acrid scent of cordite seeping through vents. O'Hare pulls up beside him, weaving tight, their props nearly kissing in the cross, the blind spot exposed, the Zero's nose-up hesitation, a fatal tell at speed. The melee explodes, Zeros swarming like angry wasps, contrails twisting into knots over Midway's airstrip, where Marine Wildcats scramble from the dirt field below, adding to the chaos. Edward's pair joins the weave, 4 planes now interlocking, forcing a trio of Zeros into the trap. One enemy pilot, Petty Officer Hiroyuki, overshoots in pursuit, his turn too tight at 300 knots, stalling the wing as Thatch and Ramsey converge from perpendicular angles. Machine guns blaze, stitching the Zero's belly. It erupts in a fireball, debris raining into the lagoon with a distant splash. The pilots shoot blooming too late against the smoke. But it's no clean victory. A Zero slips the net, diving on Fisher's tail. 20mm shells shred the Wildcat's elevator, sending it into a flat spin. Fisher bails. You see the canopy pop, his form tumbling earthward. The atoll's breakers waiting below. Thatch's stomach knots. Fisher was the quiet one, letters from his girl in San Diego tucked in his locker. Tango 4 down, regroup, he barks, banking to cover O'Hare as another Zero, Soryu's ace, Lieutenant Shigeyoshi, presses from above, cannons chattering. Bullets zip past Thatch's canopy, cracking the glass like spiderwebs, the sharp tang of fear mixing with exhaust. They weave again, relentless, high cross, low roll, the formation a deadly scissor, forcing the Zeros to break or burn. O'Hare nails one, his burst ripping the wing root, the plane cartwheeling into the sea in a geyser of foam. Edwards claims another, the blind spot proving true. That split-second vulnerability when the Zero pitches to track, eyes fixed forward, unaware of the flank. Below, the Dauntlesses scream in, bombs away on the Japanese carriers, black plumes rising from Akagi and Kaga as the tide turns. But Zeros keep coming, Hiryu's contingent diving from the clouds, their pilots screaming Bushido defiance over intercepted radio. Fuel needles creep red, ammo counters wink empty. Thatch glances at the task force. Yorktown listing slightly from near misses. her deck a frenzy of firefighters hosing foam. Bingo fuel, tango flight, RTB. He leads the break, Zeros shadowing but wary now, the Weave's geometry blunting their charge. One last pass. A Zero ghosts Thatch's 6, but O'Hare's crossfire scatters it, bullets sparking off the tail. They descend, the atoll's heat shimmering up, landing gear dropping with a whine. Touchdown jars Thatch's bones, the arrestor wire yanking him to a halt amid cheering deckhands, salt-crusted faces beaming under helmets. He climbs out, legs rubbery, O'Hare clasping his shoulder, both streaked with oil and sweat. It worked, Jimmy. That blind spot forced him right into it. We downed 4, maybe 5. Edward staggers up, arm bandaged from shrapnel, grinning through the pain. Yeah, but they got Fisher. Close call. Thatch nods, staring east, where smoke pillars the horizon, Nagumo's carriers aflame. The Weave held, cracking the Zero's reign, but the battle rages. Hiryu still afloat. Revenge strikes, inbound. In the ready room, as mechanics swarm the planes, Thatch sketches refinements, the Pacific sun climbing higher, casting long shadows. The blind spot is real, a chink in the armor, but victory demands more blood. Scouts buzz, enemy counterattack forming. The sky calls again, Weave ready, the war's pivot hanging in the balance. June 4th, 1942. Midday sun hammers down on the USS Yorktown like a blacksmith's forge. 200 miles northwest of Oahu, the carrier's deck a scorched platter amid the churning Pacific. You can feel the heat radiating through your flight boots as you dash across the anti-aircraft riddled plating, the acrid stench of burning paint and cordite clawing at your throat. Black smoke billows from a fresh hit amidships, a Japanese Val's bomb glancing off the stack, flames licking the hangar where Dauntlesses huddle damaged, their wings crumpled like foil. Alarms wail, piercing the chaos as damage control parties swarm with hoses and axes, water jets hissing against the inferno while the ship lists 5 degrees to starboard, her engines laboring to maintain 25 knots. Lieutenant Commander John Thatch emerges from the ready room hatch, sweat already soaking his collar, the weight of his parachute harness chafing like a noose. His squadron's down to 4 Wildcats, Fisher lost, Ramsey nursing a grazed wing, but the radio crackles with urgency from the bridge. Yorktown to Tango Squadron, Hiryu's launching revenge strike, 40-plus bandits, Zeros leading Kate's inbound, 80 miles out. Scramble now or we're done. Thatch's jaw tightens. The morning Weave bought time, sinking Akagi and Kaga in plumes of oily fire visible on the horizon. But Hiryu's afloat, her flight deck a hornet's nest of fresh Zeros. Pilots like Lieutenant Tomonaga, fresh from the first wave, thirsting for payback after the Dauntlesses gutted their sisters. O'Hare vaults into his cockpit first, F4F4, number 6 F12, the starter motor whining like a wounded animal before the Pratt & Whitney bellows to life, blue exhaust staining the deck. Tango 2 ready, skipper. Let's weave 'em into the drink. His voice booms over the intercom, laced with that Chicago grit. But Thatch catches the edge, the kid's hands steady on the stick, despite the tremor in his voice. Edwards and Lieutenants Hayes and Keller scramble in beside them, their planes scarred from the dawn fray, bullet holes patched with tape, fuel lines rerouted in hasty fixes. Deck straps into 6 F-15, the cockpit a sweltering box, gauges flickering, ammo at half, oxygen pressure low, but the 650 cals racked and hungry. He slams the canopy, the seal hissing shut, and signals the catapult chief, whose flags blur in the wind gusting off the bow. The slingshot catapults him skyward in a thunderclap, G-forces slamming his vision to tunnels as the Yorktown recedes, her AA batteries traversing skyward, 5-inch guns barking in salute. Climbing through 10,000 feet, the air cools to a crisp bite, carrying the faint metallic tang of evaporating fuel from the task force below, Enterprise and Hornet circling protectively, destroyers laying smoke screens that drift like grey veils. Thatch, levels off, forming the echelon. O'Hare high right, Edwards low left, Hayes and Keller trailing in weave pairs, their props sinking in a low roar that vibrates through the frame. The atoll sprawls beneath. Midway's airstrip a hive of marine corsairs scrambling dirtside, but the real threat hurtles from the northeast, radar pips blooming into specks. 18 Zeros, orange-wing predators escorting 15 Nakajima B-5N Kates, torpedoed for the carriers, their fixed landing gear dangling like talons. Bandits at 1 o'clock, Angels 12,000. Dive formation! Thatcher's call snaps the radio alive, his Wildcat banking into the sun's glare, the horizon tilting as sweat stings his eyes under the goggles. The Zeros detach, climbing with that eerie grace, Sakai engines keening at 3,100 RPM, their climb rate pulling them above the Americans in heartbeats. Leading them is Lieutenant Junior Grade Takeshi Ono from Hiryu, a wiry ace with 12 kills from the Indian Ocean, his Zeros cowling scarred from a prior skirmish. He spots the cap, diving lead first, 20mm cannons winking fire that arcs toward Edwards' tail. Shells detonate in puffs of shrapnel, peppering the Wildcat's fuselage with pings like hail on tin. "I'm hit! Losing pressure!" Edwards yelps, jinking hard, glycol trailing from a punctured line. "We've initiate. O'Hare bait low, Hayes cover the cross." Thatch rolls inverted, stomach flipping as the world inverts, the Pacific a dizzying blue below. O'Hare throttles down, diving to 8,000 feet in a shallow arc. His plane the lure as Ono latches on, nose tracking with predatory focus. The Zero closes to 200 yards, blind to the flanks in his high-speed pursuit, the pilot's eyes locked forward through the ring sight. Thatch hauls back on the stick, the Wildcat groaning under 5 Gs, wings buffeting as he crosses from beam, sights Pippa settling on the enemy's belly, that fatal blind spot where no armor shields the vitals. "Firing!" His guns unleash, 50 caliber rounds chewing through the duralumin skin, igniting the self-sealing tanks in a whoosh of flame. Ono's Zero erupts, wing shearing off in a cartwheel of debris, the wreck plummeting into the waves with a distant boom, sending geysers skyward. The squadron tightens the net. Edwards recovering to low cross, Hayes rolling high from the opposite beam, their converging fire a deadly X. Another Zero, Petty Officer Sakamoto's, overshoots O'Hare in the frenzy, pitching up too sharply at 280 knots, stalling the agile frame as the weave closes. Keller's burst rakes the undercarriage, bullets sparking off the prop hub before punching into the cockpit. The plane shudders, pilot slumping as it spirals down, chute tangled in the tail. "Confirmed kill! Blind spot again!" Keller whoops, but triumph sours fast. A Zero slips Hayes's 6 7.7mm tracers, stitching his canopy. Glass shatters, Hayes's voice cutting off in a gurgle, his Wildcat nosing over into a dive, flames trailing as it vanishes into the clouds. Thatcher's blood runs cold. Hayes was the joker, always with the bad puns in the mess. "Tango 5 down. Regroup pairs. Protect the task force." Below, the Kates break through the thinning cap, torpedoes running hot toward Yorktown, wakes arrowing like sharks. The carrier twists evasively, screws churning foam, but a Kate's fish slams home amidships. The explosion a thunderous jar that you feel in your bones even at altitude, Yorktown shuddering, bow rising on the plume. AA fire intensifies, pom-poms chattering like jackhammers, downing 2 Kates in fiery arcs. But the Zeros press, Ono's wingman diving on O'Hare with vengeful fury. O'Hare weaves solo now, throttle firewalled, rolling tight to force the exposure, his Wildcat's bulk straining, but the geometry holds. The Zero commits, belly flashing vulnerable, and O'Hare's guns blaze, a 30-round burst ripping the engine cowl. Flames bloom, the enemy bird banking away trailing smoke, but O'Hare doesn't let up, pursuing in a high-side pass that exposes his own 6. Thatch crosses to cover, bullets zipping past as he scatters a trailing Zero. "Good shooting, Butch. Stay in the weave." The air fills with the sharp ozone crack of gunfire. contrails feathering into a tangled web over the task force where Yorktown burns but fights, her Wildcats launching reinforcements from the damaged deck. Fuel warnings chime in Thatch's ears, gauges dipping critical, ammo down to bursts. 3 zeros splash, one from Edward's opportunistic shot on a stalled turn, the blind spot claiming another. But the Hiryu strike draws blood. A second bomb craters the flight deck, flames roaring 50 feet high. Thatch glances back, heart sinking at the inferno, but scouts radio triumph. Dive bombers from Enterprise mortally wounding Hiryu, her bow awash. Bingo Fuel Tango RTB Vector 180. He leads the descent, zeros breaking off warily. Their numbers halved, the Weave's trap blunting the wolf pack. Wings level, the Yorktown looms, listing heavier now, firefighters silhouetted against the blaze. Thatch traps hard, the wire yanking him amid chaos, deckhands waving amid smoke, the carrier's guts exposed in rent steel. He kills the engine, vaulting out to O'Hare's cheers, both collapsing against a bulkhead, breaths ragged. Edward staggers up, face ashen. We held 'em, skipper, that Weave saved the old girl. But alarms blare anew, scouts spotting more bandits, the battle's embers flaring. Thatch wipes blood from a shrapnel nick, staring at the sky where Zero's shadows fade. The blind spot endures, a weapon forged in loss, but Yorktown lists toward her fate, the Pacific claiming its toll as the sun arcs toward dusk. June 4th, 1942. Afternoon shadows stretch long across the USS Yorktown's ravaged flight deck, 200 miles northwest of Oahu, the carrier wallowing in the Pacific swell like a wounded beast. You can taste the bitter smoke on your tongue, thick and choking, as it rolls from the gaping wounds amidships, 2 torpedo hits and 3 bombs, turning her innards to an inferno of twisted steel and roaring flames. The deck tilts at 15 degrees now, anti-aircraft guns silent and askew, their crews slumped over rails or sprawled in pools of blood that mingle with firefighting foam. The air vibrates with the groan of straining bulkheads, distant explosions rumbling below as magazines threaten to cook off, while the sea laps hungrily at her waterline, green and relentless. Lieutenant Commander John Thatch leans against a bulkhead near the island's superstructure, his flight suit charred at the cuffs, hands black with grease and cordite residue. At 37, exhaustion etches deep lines around his eyes, but that steady gaze holds, scanning the chaos where deckhands battle blazes with axes and hoses, their shouts lost in the crackle of flames. O'Hare slumps beside him, helmet dangling from one hand, a gash across his forehead oozing red into the sweat-streaked grime on his face. "She's going down, Jimmy," he mutters, voice hoarse over the din, glancing at the list that sends loose tools skittering toward the port scuppers. Ensign Bill Edwards hobbles up, arm in a makeshift sling from shrapnel, his Texan drawl edged with grit. "We bought her time, but those Kates got their licks in. Hiryu's done, though. Scouts say she's a pyre on the waves." Thatch nods, wiping soot from his mouth. The metallic tang of blood from a split lip sharp on his palate. The weave had worked. 4 zeros splashed in that last frantic tangle, their pilots lured into the blind spot. Bellies raked by converging 50 caliber fire before they could twist away. Ono's wreck still burns on the horizon, a greasy stain, testament to the tactic's bite. But victory tastes like ash here, with Hayes gone, his Wildcat a splash mark on the charts and the Yorktown's fate sealed. Captain Elliot Buckmaster emerges from the bridge hatch, face smoke-blackened, pipe long discarded, his voice booming through a megaphone. "All hands, prepare to abandon ship, task force closing, destroyers standing by. Fighters, you're done for today. Get clear." The order unleashes pandemonium, abandoned ship drills forgotten in the tilt, men scrambling for life jackets that snag on jagged metal, the deck a slippery chaos of oil and water. Thatch grabs O'Hare's shoulder, pulling him toward the port rail, where hammocks and rafts bob in the chop. "Stick close, Butch. No heroes now." The The air fills with the hiss of steam vents rupturing, scalding bursts that send sailors diving, while overhead the few remaining Dauntlesses limp off the forward deck, pilots like Lieutenant Dick Best nursing mortal wounds on their birds. You feel the ship's death throes in your gut, the propeller shafts whining to a halt, the vast hull shuddering as she settles by the bow. They reach the rail amid a crush of bodies. Petty Officer Ramirez, the ground crew chief, shoves a Carly float over the side, its rubber sides slapping the waves 20 feet below. "Jump on 3, Lieutenant," he yells, eyes wide but hands steady. Thatch counts down, the world narrowing to the drop, wind whipping his face, the sea's cold embrace waiting. They leap together, O'Hare whooping as he hits the water, the impact a shocking slap that knocks the breath from your lungs, salt flooding your mouth as the float bobs nearby. Edwards splashes in after, cursing as his wounded arm drags, but Ramirez hauls him aboard, the group clinging to the heaving ring amid swells that crest like hills. From the float, the Yorktown towers like a dying giant, her bow plunging deeper, anti-aircraft sponsons dipping into the foam. Flames crown the island, licking radar masts that crumple with metallic screams, while Buckmaster's figure stands resolute on the bridge wing, directing the last stragglers until the end. A secondary explosion rocks the carrier, a magazine letting go in a pillar of fire and debris that rains shrapnel into the sea, one fragment whistling past Thatch's ear to ping off the float's edge. "She's going," O'Hare breathes, watching as the Yorktown rolls further, her flight deck awash, the stars and stripes dipping toward the waves before whipping free in the wind. Destroyers close in, the USS Hammond edging near despite her own scars from the morning fight, lines thrown to haul survivors aboard. Thatch's group paddles hard, arms burning in the cold current, the float grinding against the destroyer's grey hull as hands reach down, calloused grips from bluejackets pulling them up the scramble nets, boots finding purchase on the wet strakes. On deck, medics swarm with blankets and morphine syrettes, the air thick with the medicinal bite of iodine and the low moans of the wounded. Thatch collapses against a 5-inch gun mount, breath ragged, as O'Hare accepts a canteen, gulping fresh water that washes the salt from his throat. Edwards winces as a corpsman probes his arm, but grins through it. "We did it, Skipper. That weave. Turn those Zeros inside out. Blind spots their Achilles, all right." Captain George Murray of the Hammond clasps Thatch's hand, his uniform sodden, face lined with the day's toll. "Your squadron saved us, Commander. Here you went down burning. Thanks to the Cap holding the line, Nagumo's fleet's in ruins, 4 carriers lost, the atoll secure." Thatch meets his gaze, the Pacific's horizon now dotted with smoke columns from the Japanese wrecks, the sun dipping toward a blood-red sunset. Midway's battle is won, the tide shifting in this corner of the war, but at a cost. Yorktown gone, over 140 souls with her, including Hayes and a dozen more from Tango Squadron. The weave had pierced the Zero's dominance, forcing their pilots, aces like Kanai and Ono, into predictable traps, exposing that fatal underbelly where agility betrayed them at speed. As night falls, the task force steams southeast, Hammond's engines thrumming steady, stars emerging like pinpricks over the Black Sea. Thatch stands at the rail, wind cooling the ache in his bones, O'Hare beside him sharing a cigarette whose smoke curls into the dark. "What now, Jimmy? Guadalcanal's next," they say. "More Zeros waiting." Thatch exhales slowly, the ember glowing faint. "We teach it, Butch. Every squadron, every carrier. The blind spot's out. Hellcats coming soon'll make it deadlier. Zeros ruled once, but not anymore. We found their weakness, and it'll spread like fire." In the wardroom later, under swaying lanterns, Thatch sketches the weave on a napkin for the gathered officers. Lines crossing like fate's threads, geometry born of desperation now doctrine. Radio chatter hums with confirmations. Japanese remnants fleeing, the atoll's marines digging in under clear skies. The Pacific whispers against the hull, vast and unforgiving, but changed. Thatch's discovery, a tactic forged in the Coral Sea's haze, tested in Midway's storm, ripples outward, arming pilots from the Solomons to Leyte. Zeros would claim more lives, their dance deadly still, but the blind spot endures, a crack in the myth that let the Allies reclaim the heavens, one weave at a time. The war grinds on, but the sky, once their kingdom, now bends to American will.